what should your removal package look like in EDH?
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, BC, joined by Amber, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. We have videos every day. You can support us every day by giving us Patreon dollars every month, and if you do it, it'll make the channel bigger and better and have more Amber.
Yes, and I believe some rapper said, every day, F what everybody say.
Yep, and we're sponsored by Maraschiello doing things out of order. There's going to be an ad somewhere in the video. You're not going to be able to tell where it is. Guess now, be wrong. It'll be great.
TCG Player supports this channel because if you use the affiliate link, you support this channel. TCG Player doesn't do anything. They give us money when you use our affiliate link because they're nice people. So buy the same card you were going to buy anyway, but you start with their link. Bam, boom, bingo. The nerds are supported.
And happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today, even from Amber, despite the fact that she only plays 12 land stack decks in Commander. We got to get into what removal packages should look like. So we scoured through all of our decks when making this video. We noticed a few things. Decks tend to fall into one of three categories. We're either using the maximally efficient removal spells to try to get the most bang for our mana, or we are plugging as much synergy, trading power for synergy to make sure our deck hums along and kind of gets into this unstoppable funk that nobody can stop, or we're kind of doing a mixture of those things.
Yeah, exactly. So for the efficiency, what you're thinking is like your Swords to Plowshares, the best of the best, the thing that does the job the best for the least mana. That's the efficient spells. For synergy, things like Chupacabra, they're inefficient, but they get the job done while having a synergy with your deck because it's a creature for a creature deck. In a mixture, you're doing both. I think most decks will fall into the mixture category where you're going to play some of the most efficient and some that synergize with your deck.
Yes, I think as far as removal goes, our packages are going to consist of spot removal, multi-target or multi-removal, and then board wipes. That's pretty much what everybody plays. I don't even know of another category that could possibly be added. So we did an average of every single deck that we play, and let's get to mine first. The total average of spot removal I play is 7.5, 6 average multi-removal spells for me, and then 2 board wipes in my average deck. What about you, Cherries?
Yes, I'm actually very similar because for average removal, I have 7.4, which is pretty much exactly the same.
That's lower.
Yeah, it is definitely lower. I have 4.1 for my multi-removal spells, which is distinctively lower, a good 2 lower. But I play an average of 1 more board wipe as I'm up to 3.
If you tally them all up, I'm playing about 15 removal spells, and Cherry's playing about 14. So we're kind of in that mix. I think you definitely want more than 10. I feel like 10 is like an easy number to say when you build the deck, but I think you actually want more than 10.
It's a benchmark, right? It's the easiest little benchmark to set where you're like, hey, I need to get to some sort of removal, so when I count it, I feel good. 10's that number, and it usually works pretty well. I think I like to have 10 without board wipes.
I think I might even just start striving for 15.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I don't quite strive for 15. I go for 10 and then like 2 or 3 board wipes. That's
clearly you don't strive for 15. You're coming up with 14? You're showing up to games with 14 removal?
I'm sorry.
Weak sauce.
Yeah, I'm really sorry.
So one thing we thought might be helpful after we're breaking down what we play and what we, I guess, would recommend you play is we're going to go through 3 of our various decks that each fall into one of the 3 categories we mentioned before, and then just talk about what's good about it, what's the strengths, why I play this type of removal.
Yes, exactly. So the first one is BZ's Maraschiello deck, and this is a heavy removal deck, and it is all about the efficiency. This deck is not looking for synergy pieces while it is picking out its removal, so we're just going to play the best of the best.
Yes, there's almost no synergy in the deck. There's only minor positive synergy. There's no overarching theme. It's just, what's the best value I can get? How do I wreck people with card advantage? So we're just playing all efficient removal spells. We're talking like Liliana Dreadhorde General. We're talking Yawgmoth, baby. We got some creatures to sacrifice. Dismantling Wave, Deadly Rollick, and Snuff Out are 0 mana, this type of thing. Even like Hagramaulin, because it's a land we're playing and it's very efficient.
Yes, and this deck loves to get card advantage by playing multi-targeted removal. This deck is playing 10 multi-removal spells because it loves to make that card advantage. It's super strong, and because it's playing the most efficient forms of all these, it's going to spend 3 mana, get a 3-for-1, and be up cards.
Yeah, so when I'm spot removing, I want Swords to Plowshares, Snuff Out. I want to spend like 1 or 0 mana or have it in a land slot. When I'm multi-removaling, we're going to go like Crackling Doom, Curtain's Call, there's like Kaya's Guile, Kolaghan's Command, Soul Shatter, Wear Tear, Dismantling Wave, and I already mentioned Liliana and Yawgmoth. There's just tons of card advantage in the form of removal.
And this deck has a low creature count, meaning that we get to play a higher amount of board wipes that are all going to be card advantage because we're going to wipe our opponent's creatures off the board. This deck plays 6, and it's playing all the best ones. The Meathook Massacre, Blasphemous Act, Vanquish the Horde, Toxic Deluge, Mythos of Snapdax, and Ruinous Ultimatum. These are literally 6 of the best board wipes in the entire format, all shoved into one deck.
Yeah, we can't even play Tragic Arrogance because our board wipes are so good. When you're going for most efficiency, and I think card advantage in the form of removal, definitely lean towards multi and board wipes, and then just play some of the most essential, efficient, just so you don't get caught with your pants down against some kind of threat. Spot removal, I have 6.
Yes, and the decks that are going to play the most efficient removal like this are control decks or mid-range decks. So you're not going to play this in like your average, like all my pieces are working together to make this Rube Goldberg machine. No, you're playing a deck that is planning and removing a lot of things. So you're not only, when you play this, will you be playing the most efficient removal, you'll be playing higher counts of removal.
And there comes a point when you're increasing power that your deck just wants to go, all right, just give me the most efficient stuff. I want to interact at 1 or 2 mana.
Up next is my Henji deck, and this deck 100% focuses on getting removal where it can. That is synergy-based, meaning it's all creatures, because all this deck wants is the highest creature count it can get to.
Yeah, we already can look at the commanders. What does Queen Marchesa ask of you to make it a good card? Absolutely nothing. Hedzi says 4 drops or higher. I'm going to give you a card, and they're going to have haste, so you can maximize all their effects, like their attack triggers and their dice triggers, and just get a bunch of card advantage. So, like, playing, Ravenous Chupacabra and Henzi is 3 mana, kill something, attack, whatever, and then draw a card. And, like, you can't get that type of thing elsewhere, and this is the entire deck. The entire deck is these cards. We don't necessarily need the Hagra-Mullings of the world.
Yeah, and these cards are not efficient. My spot removal, I'm playing 6 in this deck, is things like Foundation Breaker. This is not the most efficient thing to do.
Choops.
Ravenous Chupacabra, just overall. Necron Deathmark and Prismaris Eliminator. They're all solid removal for the deck, and they work really well. And because they're all creatures, they power this deck up to the moon, but they're all inefficient, you're going to notice.
4 mana for a 1 removal is not great unless you can either reuse it or get advantage of the card type, which we are absolutely doing. This deck can both reuse and take advantage of the card type and just start replacing it. When I don't go down cards doing all this stuff, I'm starting to feel pretty good.
For some multi-removal, we have obviously things like Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, classic multi-removal spell, Druid of Purification. Are you noticing a theme? They're all creatures again. And you might think that this next card, Emrakul the Promised Land, isn't a removal spell. I'll tell you what, it's a removal spell. It gets like a 7-for-1 every single time.
It's close to a board wipe, but it's more like a complete morale wipe. You're just annihilating everything the opponent could ever hope to do in the game. Emrakul's insane. Definitely a removal spell. In some fashion, I would say definitely a multi type removal spell. At the bare minimum, you're throwing something of theirs into Emrakul. So give us that.
Yeah, and for board wipes, you notice how we listed 6 of the best board wipes of all time in BZ's deck? How about 3 of the worst board wipes you've ever heard? Well, Bane of Progress is okay. That's not a bad one. Massacre Girl, super inefficient, not a great card overall.
Deathbringer Regent?
Deathbringer Regent. These cards are not great board wipes. These are cards you're not just going to throw into your average deck, but when they bring so much synergy, all of this powers up your deck. By taking my, 16 removal spells in this deck and making them all creatures that can be blitzed now, I have just taken this deck from like okay to amazing, sacrificed the efficiency, and gained so much synergy.
I think you look at when is this deck going to be humming and doing what it wants? All the time. When is it going to have awkward starts and non-bows? Never. Like, the same is true of Marchesa because she doesn't care. But this deck cares about what you play, and this is just going to be absolute nonstop steamrolling towards the game plan.
And the kind of decks that'll have this type of removal package are decks that are focused around their commander and a game plan specifically. So if you're a graveyard deck, if you're something that wants to play all creatures, then this is the kind of deck that will play these kind of packages.
I think this is a great example, too, because you look at, well, yeah, you want to synergize your deck with your commander, but this deck is all in, and that's because how often is Henzi going to be in play? Literally all the time. That's the absolute start of every turn. If you don't have Henzi, you just play Henzi. And because you're green, you're just nonstop ramping with like Rampant Rejuvenators and all these dudes that just die and ramp and do good work as soon as you play Henzi, and then you play Henzi like the 6th time, and you're still throwing out Ulamogs for 5 mana. All the time Henzi is in play, so all the time we're going to be working towards the goal with all of our cards.
Yeah, and also something I know for decks like this is usually what ends up happening is your whole deck is synergistic together. Even if Henzi's not in play for this deck, it's just a bunch of creatures that I can play out onto the board without blitzing them.
Sometimes you just have anger in your graveyard and you go, great, these all have attack triggers and dice triggers. I'm just going to send them in. So I think if you have a commander that's going to be out less of the time or that demands less of a build around, you can start shifting towards the like splitting your difference and playing some of the most efficient stuff and then some of the synergy and lean towards it a little bit.
And for an example of that, we have BZ's God Eternal Oketra deck, which is playing 11 spot removal spells. And it splits its spot removal. Not all of it is synergy. Not all of it is efficient. We have swords in here. We have Path to Exile. These super efficient, amazing one-for-one removal spells. But on the flip side, we have Giant Killer that can be searched up in this deck by things like
Ranger Captain and Ranger of Eos.
Yeah, and Bounty Agent. These are cards that are not the best at doing their singular job, but this deck just wants as many creatures as it can get because every creature you cast gives you a 4/4 when you have God Eternal Ketra.
Yeah, so if you add some of these cards up, it's like, oh, hey, 2 and a white destroy a big creature. Like, that's pretty crappy. But it's going to come with a 1/2 and also a 4/4, and then there's going to be maybe ETBs, cast triggers. You're going wide. You're trying to overrun, so it's extra power when that happens. It just kind of all adds up and like snowballs a little bit to where if I was playing, instead of Giant Killer, Bounty Agent, Cathar Commando, Lauren, Fiend Hunter, Skyclave Apparition, Solitude, and Aerial Extortionist, if I'm playing 7 instant or sorceries, my deck just starts sputtering out and not having any board presence. It's like, oh, I just removed everything and I have no board.
Yeah, and any deck that isn't the like super synergy deck we just talked about with Henzi, when you play board wipes in those decks, those will be the best. Like you're not going to pick the inefficient board wipes. That's not what you're going to do. Maybe one at most, but you're going to play the best ones. That's why BZ in this deck is playing Undo Inversion, which is a land, Vanquish the Horde, and Farewell. These are just the best of the best when it comes to wiping the board.
Fun fact, I actually had By Invitation Only, which was like a synergy board wipe for this deck, but I think I just could not exclude Farewell. So I'm trying out Farewell instead of that. But I think you could maybe do like, if you have 3 wipes, 2 of them just super efficient. One of them maybe is like, oh, it's a one-sided board wipe with whatever deck I'm playing. And I think multi-target removal kind of suffers a little bit because I'm like in mono white. So I got like Heliod's Intervention, sort of Fire Knight's supposed to go on Oketra, so that can be multi. And then it's just like, a little medium. There's only 4, not great, but I still want to have some. I think you can't leave home with none.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. This deck doesn't have the most multi, but it's mostly because of its color combination.
Yeah, I want to add more, honestly, if I can.
But it doesn't exist, right? We're in mono
tough.
white.
It's tough. There's no Druid of Purification in white.
So if you're sitting at home right now and you have a deck, I would try and see which one of these 3 categories it fits into. Most likely it's going to fit into this final category here that wants some sort of mixture. But if it fits into one of the other 2, it makes a big difference to both your count because, like we said, if you're playing one of those decks that's only playing the efficient removal, you want a higher count in this. And if you're playing like the Henzi one, you could have a little less because your deck is all synergy.
And it'll make the decks a lot easier to brew, especially if you're brewing on Moxville.com, the best deck building website ever. I'm just going to say it right now. I think if you're in one of those first 2 categories, all the tiebreaker decisions of like, oh, do I play Nature's Claim or Druid of Purification? If that's your choice, you just go, oh, I'm in the Henzi side of it, or I'm in the Queen Marchesa side of it. So you take one of those. That's not a great example because they're both amazing, but you know what I'm talking about. Moxville's going to let you do it all, though, any way you want it. It's the user interface, too simple, too easy to use. Scroll, sort, tag, complete, build, and then check out all your removal. You can tag removal, see all the spells at once, order them by mana cost, order them by price. You just can't mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. Using tags, you can put everything into spot removal, multi-removal, or wipes. So now, because you have 150 decks, so it's really hard for you to keep up with. Well, every single deck, as soon as you've labeled all of those removal spells for your decks, now whenever you click on any one of them, you can just count it up. Actually, you don't even have to. Moxville will tell you a number right next to it of how many you have.
Yeah, if you're looking for like actionable things to do after this video, I would say go check out all your decks, average them up, figure out how many spot removals, how many multis, and how many board wipes you're playing. Figure out your average. I think if you're like too much below, if you're below 10, I would definitely try to up it in general or find the decks that are like the outliers. And if you're around 15, I would say good friggin' job.
Yeah, exactly. And make sure that you play some synergy unless you're that control mid-range deck, which is few and far between. So we talk about it all the time, how important synergy is to decks. I think every deck except for those really highly controlling decks want to have those synergy pieces in their deck for removal. It's so important.
Yeah, that's why we give up the Cultivates for the Wood Elves. That's just on the ramp side of it. If you're looking for some of the best spot removal to play in the entire format, we're doing the top 10 spot removal cards in this video, so you should go watch it, and then you know which are the most efficient ones to put in your deck.
Smooth. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.